Let's do some CFB whip around here to end today's show. Some good college football games. We kind of had a good feel for all of them. Texas Tech dominated that game against BYU. You know, BYU, what they did was kind of a fairy tale type of run, but you had to give them credit, right? They kept coming back late in these games, fourth quarter, coming up with some big victories, and they deserve a lot of credit for doing that, right? When you're talking about BYU, but that's just not a recipe that you can rely on, right, as a football team. You can't sit there and go, oh, we're just going to show up late in the game and, score a bunch of points and storm back and win. You face a team like Joey McGuire, Texas Tech, what they've done in the portal, sensational. Bailey off the edge, Rodriguez would win the Buckus Award if Arvell Reese didn't exist. So they've got some really good pieces there defensively. And, Baron Morton, if he stays healthy, protects the football, he's going to be able to score enough points. But they did a nice job flipping the field position on him. They were defending. They were running the ball, even if it started out a little bit slow for the Red Raiders. Had the home field advantage there in Lubbock. We've said all year that Texas Tech's the best team in the Big 12. They're a playoff team, right? Pretty clearly to me. They did have the loss on the road against Arizona State, kind of a fluky situation, had their backup quarterback playing in the game. So Texas Tech kind of head and shoulders above everyone else in the Big 12, in my opinion. Utah is a good team. UC obviously struggled mightily with Utah. Texas Tech blew the doors off of Utah there as well. So, I think, this makes this game for UC in a couple of weeks even bigger. When BYU comes to town, that's going to be absolutely awesome because now you have BYU kind of trying to fight there and keep their season alive as far as postseason aspirations go. And that's going to be a great game. But I think UC can beat BYU. We said the committee had them ranked too high. They had them at 7 and Tech 8. They had that wrong, right? That needed to be flipped. And you saw that in the game there as Texas Tech rolled, no problem. And Bachmeier, they deserve a lot of credit for what they've done. And, next year for BYU, maybe they can be that team that, wins the Big 12 potentially. And obviously, they still have a lot in front of them. And who knows? They could surprise us and go on a run. But I think just Texas Tech showed why they're the class of the Big 12 there in that game. Indiana, Penn State. Our one best bet of the weekend that did not hit. I thought Indiana was going to be able to smack them. Look, I understand it was not in Bloomington. I understand it was in Happy Valley, right, in Penn State for that game. I understand that Penn State still has some NFL bodies on that team, right? And, Ohio State, I'm hesitant to say the word struggled, but it was close in the first half. And Ohio State obviously pulled away in the second half. And, Indiana, their whole thing all year was that, they didn't just beat teams, they beat the crud out of teams. And I thought that was going to continue in the game. But, I said all year that Mendoza, what he's done, great. Deserves a lot of credit for it, but he is not on the same level as Julian Sayin. He is not on the same level as Ty Simpson. And to me, he showed that in the game. Did he make some unbelievable throws on that final drive? Yes. Was it incredibly gutsy that he did that on the road, staring adversity right in the face, and executed, especially after the massive negative play on the first play of the drive? Yes. I don't mean to come here and disrespect Fernando Mendoza for his performance at the end of that game. He deserves a lot of credit for it. But there's some people spinning the narrative of, oh, that was his Heisman moment. And Gus Johnson, who is tremendous at his job, he's losing it, right, when they have the big catch there at the end to win it, and he says, give him the Heisman. Well, what are you talking about? What do you give him the Heisman, right? He should have never been in that spot. Again, you're the number 2 team in the country against a Penn State team who doesn't have their coach and doesn't have their quarterback, right? It's not a Heisman moment to come down and barely win the game because your receiver, by the way, makes an out-of-the-world catch. Credit to Mendoza, he gave him an opportunity, but that's all the catch there, not the throw. It's one of the best catches we'll see this year in college football. So, look, Mendoza, he deserves to be in New York for the Heisman. And again, if he runs the table here and beats Ohio State in the title game, then sure, give it to him. But here at this point, I think there is a significant level in between Simpson and Sayin and Fernando Mendoza. And some people spin it like, oh, that's his Heisman moment. That's why he should win the Heisman. I look at it and go, that's why he shouldn't win the Heisman. Why are you in a situation where it's that close? And if you go back and watch the first half, he was missing throws. Even in the third quarter, was missing throws. Credit to him. He was best when at the end of the game where he needed to be. But I don't get that, with Mendoza. And that was, again, love Gus Johnson, but that's probably one of the worst calls of his career. Like, what do you give him the Heisman? What are you talking about? One, it's, November 8th when that happens, and he comes back and beats a Penn State team that's won a handful of games, that lost to Northwestern and UCLA, and doesn't have their quarterback and their coach got fired. Like, I didn't get that whatsoever. But credit to Mendoza. It was a great drive. Cignetti after the game was, obviously he was proud of his team, but that was by far the worst Indiana has looked all year. When you play that bad and you get a win, that can say a lot about a team, right? I understand that. But, there was a reason we had Alabama at 2 and Indiana at 3. And, you kind of saw that over the weekend there. As I don't think at this point you can say Indiana's the second-best team in the country. But obviously we're all hoping them and Ohio State can run the table and battle it out in Indianapolis for the Big Ten. But, I think that's a knock on Indiana more than an incredible come-from-behind win, which great drive, but, shouldn't have been in that spot. What else? Alabama won again 20-9. And, Simpson the past 2 games – obviously had the bye last week for Alabama. There's probably been his 2, apart from the Florida State game, which, by the way, I didn't think he was that bad. I said that after the Florida State game. Oh, by the way, Alabama has a quarterback, despite the fact that they lost that game and got smacked in that game. But I think, he wasn't bad against LSU and he wasn't bad against South Carolina. Obviously, he was perfect against South Carolina in the fourth quarter. But he missed some throws early. But my takeaway from this game with Alabama is that I think even more highly of Alabama after this game than I did going in. I understand you only scored 20 points, but my concern with Alabama is defensively. And the turnover that Kane Womack has done on the defensive side, and I'll be honest, I did not think he was the right man for the job. I thought he should be on the hot seat. I thought they should make a move there at that spot. I was all the way out on Kane Womack. And what he's been able to do navigating through some injuries there as well. I mean, that's a banged-up unit for Alabama. And this guy, Yanze Pierre, at that linebacker position, talking about best linebackers in the country, Arvell Reese, Jacob Rodriguez, you got to put Yanze Pierre into this conversation there as well. And when Quay Russaw broke his foot early in the year, we all kind of sat there and said, what's Alabama going to do at that linebacker spot? Then you bring in this Yanze Pierre kid. He's unbelievable. He's literally unbelievable. Then you have some injuries along your defensive line. Now you got to start a true freshman in London Simmons. How's he? He's unbelievable. And we talked about the guys on the back end of their defense, struggling with run fits. They gave up a ton of big runs early in the year. Past couple games, where's that been? They've solved that problem there as well. They've got guys on the outside that can cover. So the turnaround for the Alabama defense has been incredible to me. Obviously, they haven't been able to run the football. They weren't able to run it against LSU. That's a concern. If you want to win the national title, you got to have some semblance of a run game. And there were some misses from Ty Simpson, all throughout that game, to be completely honest with you. But the thing about Alabama that makes them dangerous, and we talked about this with Ohio State there as well, they can get 50 yards at the snap of their fingers, right? Oh, you need 50 yards right here? Boom! You can go get 50 yards with Ty Simpson slinging it down the field, whether it be, Ryan Williams or Jeremy Bernard or the freshman Latier Brooks. They've got guys that can go get 50 yards for you immediately, and that's why they'll always be in the game, and that's why they'll always have a chance, and that's why they'll always be a threat. That was, you only scored 20 points, okay, but I actually left that game with more confidence in Alabama just because of the tremendous defense that they were able to play and just the fact that they were able to get those big plays whenever they want them, right? You need some more consistency. They missed on a lot, right? They got a tough one immediately this week, Oklahoma. They're the better team. Alabama, of course, the better team. I don't know what the spread is, like 7 points, probably something around that. Got to show up ready to go. Got to be better against Oklahoma if they want to keep this run going. But I was impressed with Alabama in that game. Real quickly on the LSU side, hand up accountability. They were my pick to win the national title. That might be they're calling that the worst pick of all time, I think some people. I thought Nuss was going to have a good year. I thought he was going to turn himself into a first-round guy. That's not happening. He got benched in the game, and they got an interim guy, Frank Wilson, obviously. Brian Kelly fired. But he was 18 of 21 and then got benched. They'd struggled in the red zone. They hadn't scored a ton of points, so I sort of get it. But I don't think I've ever seen in my life a quarterback go 18 for 21 and then get benched. And they put the kid in. They were trying to, Wilson said after the game, trying to catch Alabama off guard a little bit with more of a running threat. But that was a mistake. Horrible decision there by LSU. So, I kind of feel for Nuss a little bit. 18 to 21, they get benched, right? And this is your final year, and you're playing your rival Alabama. And the game was, Alabama felt like they had controlled the game, but the game was still very much in reach for LSU, and they made that switch. So that was just a head-scratching decision there for me. But LSU, obviously, in shambles. They got a lot of work to do, and obviously their priority is who the heck they're going to bring in to be the next head coach, and ultimately we'll see who that is. And finally, Ohio State. They don't play anybody good. We know this. On the road at West Lafayette. On the road at Purdue. Half the stadium is scarlet, right? But, Julian saying he's unbelievable. That pick was bad, right? Kind of reminded you of the Drake May, or it happened before, but kind of looking back on it reminds you of the Drake May pick on Sunday against the Buccaneers. But that's like the one mistake he's made. That throw to Jeremiah Smith, I don't remember if it was the first or second touchdown, just down the seam, just right over two defenders, just on a line. And Smith literally turned around and went like this, and the ball was there. One of the best throws I've seen all year. Saying's tremendous. People don't give him credit for his athletic ability. This guy was a dual threat guy coming out of high school. He can move around the pocket. He can move outside the pocket. He can throw on the run. He's got the best skill guys, obviously, in the country. Ohio State's the real deal. We said this last week. People sitting there saying, oh, A&M, oh, Indiana could be ranked higher. Just stop it. Just stop it right now. I understand Ohio State hasn't played anybody, and obviously they'll get tested against Michigan, theoretically, and we'll go from there. But I don't see how you can watch college football and say they're not the best team in the country, despite the fact that they haven't played much of a schedule. A&M, big win for them on the road against Missouri. That was easy. Light work, no problem for them. Obviously, Bo Perbula, quarterback for Mizzou, he's out. They were the true freshman. He didn't look very comfortable, which how could you expect them to look very comfortable there in that game? But A&M, they ran it when they wanted to. They defended well enough. They threw it with Marcel Reed. And, I think when I think Heisman, it's Sayin and Simpson. I think it's a two-horse race. Most people would say, or a lot of people would say Mendoza's in there as well. If Mendoza plays well against Ohio State in the title game and wins, fine. But, to me, it's either Sayin or Simpson. I would give the nod to Julian Sayin here at this moment. But Marcel Reed, as they continue to win, he deserves some love, especially if they run the table, right? And if he has a big game against, obviously they played Texas. Texas could beat Georgia this week. That Texas A&M game at the end of the year could be massive, right? And then if he plays Alabama in the championship game, wins that, then all of a sudden you're comparing his resume to Julian Sain's resume, and you're going, Sain hasn't played anybody, and maybe Marcel Reed could steal this thing. But A&M's real. I'll have a decision to make if I bump A&M over Indiana. I'll have to think about that one. Certainly going to have Alabama over them again. But, we'll see what I do there with A&M and Indiana. I'll have to sleep on that a little bit. But another great week in college football real quickly before we get out of here. Oregon. Oregon, I thought they were disrespected a little bit, put at 9. They had the two Big 12 teams, Tech and BYU, put ranked over them. Bit of a head-scratcher for me. Totally upset alert. Iowa was one of our best bets of the weekend. Basically had the game won, but Dante Moore, in the elements, gets his team down the football field, manages the clock beautifully, kick a field goal, it's a game winner. So, kind of how I view Indiana a little bit lesser than I did, despite the fact they won. I certainly view Oregon a little bit higher than I did, even though it was ugly. But that's just kind of, you're at Kinnick Stadium, and those elements, it ain't going to look pretty. And they handled it well. And keep an eye on Oregon. That might be the spark they needed here to get hot. That's a good Iowa team. Obviously, they can't throw the football, but they're tough, physical, good defense, good special teams. And that's a big-time win for Dan Lanning on the road for the Ducks. And they should go up significantly in the college football playoff rankings. We will see tomorrow night.